Hello everyone and welcome to another What I Think review, and today I'm going to be looking at the first set of the Eaglemoss Hero Collector TimeLord Victorious figurines. Now I did not plan on buying these because I've never collected the Eaglemoss figures. I've never even had any in hand, simply because I prefer more the action figures, because if there is anything I want, I can make it. And obviously those of you who have seen my TimeLord Victorious series will have seen that I have made my own versions of these figures. So I didn't need to buy these. What I did want out of these was the magazines, because they contain some of the narrative, and I did try to ask around if anybody would be willing to sell the magazines separate from the set, and they weren't. Understandably, it was a long shot, but it was worth a try. So in the end I just resigned myself to the fact that I was going to buy these. I just want to very quickly point out and saying that now that having said that, I bought this for the magazine, but I am going to keep the figures because now I'm going to buy them. I might as well buy all of them because I want to buy them for the magazines, so I want to keep them as a set. It isn't something I would normally buy, but for that reason, because it's not something I would normally buy, this is my first real experience of Eaglemoss figures. As such, I am going to review them as a consumer who has never bought these products before. I am aware of some of the issues with these figures, and I appreciate that I am probably going to say some things which many people have pointed out before. So I would just like to say, please, if I'm repeating things that everyone's going to turn around and go, yes, we know this, you don't have to keep saying it, I'm going to say it because it's my first experience of these figures, and it's my response as a consumer who has never bought these figures before to say it. And I am very sorry to say that I do have to start on a negative point, because even before I get into this set, I am going to show you the very, and I'm sorry there's no way of saying this, very poor quality of the packaging this was sent in. It's not something that I would normally do, but I got these direct from Eaglemoss, and their packaging is, well, see for yourself. So here is my package as it arrived. Now I've blanked out obviously my postal address and things, but I want to show this because I know this isn't part of the product, but I can't let this slide. I can't ignore this. So this is the box I have received from Eaglemoss directly. This is the state it was received in. It's been smashed there. It's been completely crushed on that side. It's been completely crushed on this side. And if we look inside it, this is how I received this set packaged. So there's nothing on top or underneath, depending on which way you open this box, and then inside there is one piece of this bubble package, one of which is still full, the other of which has burst. And that's how it's been shipped to me. Now, obviously, luckily, the item itself is still in fairly good condition, but the fact remains that I appreciate that some people get these and bits of them have broken off, and I accept that. I accept that these are figurines. They are fragile, and as such, if you buy this sort of thing, you have to expect the occasional breakage in transit. It's unfortunate, but it happens. However, if you are the manufacturer of said delicate item, then you should package it in a manner that is befitting of a delicate item, because at the end of the day, that very shoddy, inequivalent packaging of a cardboard box and, let's be honest, half a piece of packing material, one of which has burst, that is absolutely unacceptable. I'm sorry, I don't want to have a go at Eaglemoss and make it sound like I'm going to completely slate this figure, but it really is unacceptable for that to be sent out like that. There are no two ways about it, because this is a delicate item. It could have very easily broken, and I just don't think that if you want people to buy this, that's not how you should send these things out, because if you know your item is breakable, you should package it accordingly. I just wanted to make that point and show that, because if this had been packaged well, I wouldn't have really had an issue with this, but the fact that to me, this packaging is the face of the company. This is the first thing I see when I get it, the first thing I see when I open it, and it's the first sort of, it tells me a bit about the company and the way they ship their products, and that is poor. That is very, very poor. So I do have to downmark Eaglemoss on that. I'm very sorry, but I do. But now let's get on to looking at the actual set itself. So that was my thoughts on the box packaging. Now to actually get on to looking at the figures, which I had hoped would have been being able to go to a bit more positive light, and I'm sure I'm going to find some lovely plus points in this, because there are some ones that immediately jump out to me that are very good, but there are also immediately some that jump out to me which are very, very bad, unfortunately. The box itself is very nicely presented. It is a very nice looking box. Obviously we've got all the TimeLord Victorious. We've got the window for the figures, which I'll come back to in a minute. Obviously TimeLord Victorious on the side, and then on the back we've got a little bit about the magazine, some character biographies, story highlights, behind the scenes info, more, and then some nice information about the actual drones themselves. Very nice information. I have to say, you know, credit where it's due, this sort of stuff is the kind of information, this is lovely information to see on the back of this box, because we see very similar things on the back of the character options series of figures, especially the Dalek ones. But as some of you may know, I previously mentioned in the triple packs how it would be nice if they just included some information about what story the figures are from, even if it's just the name of the story. You know, I'm not asking for a whole paragraph of this about the story itself, just to tell the fans, this is the 4th Doctor from this story, this is Sarah Jane Smith from this story, on the back of a triple pack, because this really does highlight how underused the back of a box can be text-wise. When you look at how much space there is on the back of a character options triple pack box, they could fit a lot of information on there, and it would be nice to see. So, you know, I have to give Eaglemoss points on that front, that it has come out very nicely looking on that front. On the front of the box, going back to the window, now my first thought, I have to say, is I thought that these figures were much larger. I thought they were about twice the size of this, so I am actually genuinely surprised by their size. Again, I have never had these in hand before, I've never seen these, so I know some people are going to go, well yes, that's the size of them, but I'm new to all of this, so that's not what I expected. So it is a bit strange that they're that small. I think it's well, I'm going to come back to price in a minute, but I will just say for the price, these are $19.99. I appreciate there's a lot more in here, and I haven't looked at the magazine yet, so I will reserve full judgment. But for $19.99, I have to say I did expect slightly larger figures, but that is the way it is. But there is one more thing before I open this that I do want to show, which unfortunately is a bit of a sad point. But I you know, as I said, I've paid for this. You know, I'm going to have my say on this, because at the end of the day, this is something I've bought and I've paid for it, and I do have to highlight the negatives as well as the positives. So as you can see here, I've done a close-up on the dome of the Emperor, and as you can quite clearly see, bearing in mind this is still sealed in its box, his eye stalk is completely bent. Now obviously, again, as I said at the start, these are delicate figures, and if you buy these, then obviously damage can happen in transit, and you know, things like that. It happens, okay? But what this says to me is I can't understand how this would happen in transit, because it's fixed into the box with, if I lift it up a bit, you can see that it's fixed into the box with a tie. So this has been put in the box this way, which means this has got past quality control. Either it was taken right like that off the assembly line and put in the box with the bent eye stalk, or somebody has put this in the package and bent the eye stalk in the process. And it's a real shame, because, you know, this is my first experience of this set, and to find something like that in it, where it is effectively, I know it's only bent, but it is effectively broken, and it's not what I expected to get. It is a poor mark. I'm sorry, but it is. You know, it's something which is, I've paid money for. I've paid a fair bit for. I've paid, you know, 20 quid for this whole set, and not only do I get it and find that it's poorly packaged when it gets to me, it's also slightly damaged or warped, or whatever you want to call it. It's a very unfortunate thing, but it is there, you know, and I do have to point that out. It's a real shame, and it's not, you know, I have seen other people get these and find that they've got bits that are bent or bits that have broken off. And to be fair, I do know that people have said that they've then got in contact with Eaglemoss and they have sent out replacements. And credit where it's due, that's great. And if this is, as it appears to be, a small wire, just on the eye, hopefully on the eye stalk, hopefully I can just straighten it, so it's not something that's going to bother me if I can just straighten it out. But if I can't, or I try to straighten it out and it's broken, then I hope that they would offer a replacement. But the bottom line is, I shouldn't have to ask for a replacement for something like this. That shouldn't have happened in the first place. So it is unfortunate that I have to raise that, but there it is. But let's get into the box and actually have a look at these figures themselves. So here we have the figures out of the box. They are very nicely sculpted figures, I have to give them that much. You know, the sculpting on them is very nice. It's sort of the little, you know, the small details, the new details that are on these Daleks are on there. You know, you've got on the Emperor, you've got the new lights, you've got the slats either side on the dome. You've also got these indents on the dome on the front and on the back. There is this slightly larger one on the back, which I didn't know was there, but obviously that is. And then obviously you've got all of the surrounds on the globes as well. You've got the nice gold piece on the arm stalk, and then on the standard drone as well. You've got all of the nice smaller just differences. Ultimately it is just a standard sort of drone Dalek. It's got a few small interesting changes, such as the dome doesn't have any detailing on it, which the renders do seem to have, which is interesting. But other than that, it's got all the blue, and then on the both of them, underneath on the base, does have the hover bits, I suppose you would call it. But there are one or two things on these which I do feel I have to point out. So I'm going to do a quick zoom and a bit of a comparison as well to take a look at these, because there are some things that are worth pointing out. Now, I've seen some other people post their pictures of these, and it's something which I have to say I'm quite lucky with, it seems, the ones I've got, that I haven't had this as an issue, but I have noticed it on some of the other pictures that people have shown of these, and unfortunately you can see this on the drone here, where the paintwork around these globes here is, you know, you can see it on this top one, it's not been fully painted. On this bottom one, you know, the blue bit has barely been painted properly. And it just is sort of, you know, kind of obvious. You can see edges and bits that just aren't quite painted. And, you know, I appreciate that these are not meant to be toys, you know, things like that. They are produced very quickly as statues. They are solid statues or statuettes or figurines or whatever you want to call them. And so obviously, you know, they are made within certain tolerances, but the problem is that, again, I look at it as in like a character options figure, for example, might have a few small little paint errors here and there, and it's kind of, it's a toy, you know, you expect it to be produced sort of quite quickly in that sense, and that it, you know, it's made to be, you know, a toy. But these are not made to be toys. In fact, I want to read something out on the bottom of the box, which I'm going to come back to in 1 second. It says here, collector's models, not designed or intended for play by children under 14 years. Which means these are statues. These are collectible pieces. And I can't help but think, I appreciate that these are painted by hand, no doubt, but these are made to be collectible statues. They are made to be display pieces. And if I'm going to pay to buy a statue or something that is going to go on display, I would expect very, very good craftsmanship. Even for $19.99, I expected a lot more on these. And, you know, it's one of those things, I'm sure some people, you know, I'm sure some people are going to turn around and say things like, yeah, but, you know, the manufacturing costs and everything like that, and then when you take all that into account, £19 is quite cheap, and that is very true. I do not deny that for a second. But I just still can't get past the quality or slight lack thereof on these. And as I said, I've been quite lucky with these ones. They look quite good to me, but just generally, I have seen other versions which are very lacking in their quality on some of the paintwork, and this sort of, you know, this drone one is a perfect example of that. It is a shame, you know, I'm really trying to find some positives on these, but at the same time I want to review them fairly, and I'm not going to deny I am struggling to find some positives. The next thing I want to go into is the size of these, which I did briefly mention, but I would just like to do a comparison to sort of try and illustrate the point I mean with this. So in the middle here we have our two statues. On the left we have a character options 5-inch Dalek, and on the right we have a character options 3 3/4-inch Dalek. And I think, like many of you who haven't seen the Eaglemoss figures before, you will probably be quite surprised they're this small. I certainly was. You know, and I appreciate that. I'm sure, you know, on many websites it tells you, you know, on the Eaglemoss website it does tell you how tall they are and things like that. And I'm not saying that I have been missold this. I'm not trying to say that it's a, you know, that they're not telling you how tall these things are. I'm well aware that they were in a specific scale, and you know, it's ultimately down to me to check that as responsibility as a buyer and things like that. But I have to say, even knowing that, I still wasn't expecting them to be this small. I wasn't expecting them to be, you know, 5-inch scale. That would have been a lot. As someone who has made solid resin statues, I'm well aware of how hefty that would be. So making them in this smaller scale, because these are quite, you know, these have got a bit of a weight to them. They are solid. You know, I appreciate that. So I wasn't expecting them to be 5-inch scale. But I have to say, I was certainly expecting them to be larger than the 3 3/4-inch scale, which, as you can quite clearly see, they are not. You know, somewhere between the two, even if it's just 4 inches, you know, that's the sort of area I was expecting them to be. You know, and the fact that they are this small, you know, it is just a bit. Again, I want to stress that I appreciate the production cost and everything that's gone into this. When you add it up, $19.99 is probably a very cheap price. You know, I don't dispute that for a second. And we've got the magazine we've still got to yet look into. But just looking at the size of these, for what's in this box, for the price I paid, I can't help but feel a bit shortchanged. And maybe that's me, you know, maybe that's just me wishing for a bit too much. It wouldn't be the first time that fans have wished for things too much. I'm just simply voicing how I feel, you know, that's the thing. And if I'm being perfectly honest, obviously given the choice, I definitely choose the 5-inch range over anything else. But looking at this lineup here, as I love the designs of these Daleks, the actual designs of them, you know, the way that they've been put together looks absolutely superb. It really does look very, very good. You know, I do not dispute that in the slightest. You know, I've actually talked to the guy that designed them, Dave Lankin. He's done a brilliant work on that. And you know, Eaglemoss actually making the design for these and molding these and actually making them as figures, they've done brilliant work. I'm not, you know, I'm not disputing that at all. But as a product, as a general commercial product, I have to be honest and say, and I don't think anybody ever thought these words would come out of my mouth, given my track record / history previous comments made towards what I'm about to say. Out of these, taking out the 5-inch, I honestly think the 375 range is better than these Eaglemoss figures. And it's not, I'm not just saying that because of their articulation. Let's assume, you know, put it this way: if the 3 3/4-inch figures, this one here, was not articulated, if they had made them this scale, like this, and with this attention to detail as the 5 and 3 3/4-inch range had, because as not a fan as I was of this range, the one thing they did good in this was the Daleks. And if the Eaglemoss figures had been this size with this level of detail, and even not including articulation, they would have been a lot better. And you know, I'm going to be honest, because I've bought these, I've paid for these, I am a consumer, and I feel like I should give my honest opinion. You know, and the thing is as well, I'm going to buy the other sets, and part of the reason why I'm being so critical in this review is because I know I'm going to feel the same thing in the other reviews. So I'd rather get it all out in the first one, so I then haven't got to repeat myself in the other ones, and I can really sort of try and focus on the positives. But you know, as a set, I do have to, you know, as a consumer, I do have to post up the negatives as well as the positives, which is obviously, now we've looked at the figures, I'm going to get on to looking at the magazine, and I'm afraid even that's not going to be wholly positive, because there is one glaring issue which relates to what I had previously read out on the bottom of the box. So here we have the magazine which comes with this set, and my first thought about looking at this when it was still in the package was, oh no, they've folded it in half, because obviously you've got this picture here and then you've got this picture on the other side, and I thought that it was a magazine this big that had been folded in half, but what's actually the case is this is the magazine size that has been simply done in this way, so it is a good size magazine, which is lovely. Obviously there's lots of information in here, so we've got information about the TimeLord Victorious Dalek drones, different hierarchies of the Daleks that we've seen over the years, Glass Dalek, Dalek Commanders, drones. Then you've got some information about the Emperor, so obviously the TV comic Emperor, the TV standard TV Emperor, the Davros Emperor, and then the God Emperor, as they're calling it, from Parting of the Ways. Then you've got this lovely piece, which is going to be difficult to capture on camera. I'll try and do it as best I can, which is basically the anatomy of the TimeLord Victorious Dalek Emperor. A wealth of information on there that is absolutely fantastic to see. A nice sort of centerfold image, if you will, of the Dalek revealing itself. Ooh, then you've got a bit more about the Emperor Dalek, sort of what he does and things like that. Bits more on there, and then you've got these, the last message, which is the TimeLord Victorious story, which is several pages in fact, which is lovely to see of this, and then you've got a last bit of information about the Dalek Emperor and the Dalek drone. Obviously I've only bought this for the story in there, so personally I am very pleased to see that this set does have a nice, good, lengthy story in it, rather than it just being one page. And there is an absolute wealth of information in this little figurine book. It's certainly, personally for me, the best thing about this set, the amount of information that's in there. But I do have one niggly little issue with this, which I do have to raise, I'm afraid. You know, it's a bit of a shame that this is the one thing that was was the best thing about this set for me, and there is still an issue with it, and it's such a tiny insignificant thing that I know people are going to think I'm just quibbling, but there is a point to this, and it is this cover, and it's the fact that it's done in this way, that it's folded over like this, just feels very wrong and slightly annoying, if I'm honest, because on the bottom of the main box here, it says, I might have already mentioned this in the video, but I'm going to do it again just in case. This is a quote from the box. "Collector's models not designed or intended for play by children under 14 years. Now, as collector's models, it means that there are going to be people who are going to want to keep these in the box pristine. And so when you see this magazine in the box, so I put the box in the background, it is folded in half like this. And I can't help but wonder why they didn't print this cover 90 degrees and printed it straight on this, and then you just had this sort of blue as the back page of the other side, because it just would have looked really nice in the background of the box to have that in there. And you know, again, it's a very niggly small little thing, but I know for a fact that there are going to be some collectors out there who are going to forever only ever see this as looking like the magazine's been folded in half, which is what it does look like. That was my first thought was. So it's, you know, again, it's such a tiny small thing, but it just would have made a world of difference of just making the set look that little bit better. And it is a very tiny little thing that is not really any relevance, but I do have to bring it up as a point, because I do feel like it does for me personally, as someone again who's never bought these sets before, it does detract slightly from it that in the background of this box there's forever going to be something which isn't going to be fully revealed. I would have personally liked to have had the full cover revealed on the front of this magazine to display in the box behind the figures, but as it is, I can't put it in the box that way because it's slightly too big to fit, which means it's got to go that way, which means I've then got to decide, well, do I want that bit or do I want the back cover? And it just doesn't. It's a shame. It is a real shame. You know, there's not really much more I can say on that. You know, as I said, though, the magazine, for that one tiny little issue with it, is an absolute wealth of information. It is thoroughly worth getting for this set. So, Eaglemoss Doctor Who TimeLord Victorious Figurine Collection 1 with Dalek, Emperor and Drone. Is it worth it? Well, if I had to sum it up in one sentence, or at least one way of putting it, obviously I have reviewed its positives that I can see, and I've reviewed its negatives. Its positives are that the figures themselves are very nice looking, they're very well sculpted certainly, and the magazine has a lot of good information in it. Unfortunately, those are the only two positives I can think of. Negatives wise, the fact that the way it came to be packaged, is not a, I can't, you know, it's not something to have a go at the product, I know, but at the same time this has been how the company has shipped it to me, and the company makes the product, so therefore I feel it is an honest criticism. It was poorly packaged. When it arrived, it was, for lack of a better word, damaged in a way because of the eye stalk, which I had to correct. The paint applications on the figures is not as good as I would expect, and the magazine, whilst it does have a lot of useful and interesting information in it, again, it's a very trivial thing, but I just can't, that cover is just a very, very odd design choice that just really stands out like a sore thumb, you know. So, unfortunately, I do have more negatives than I do positives, but if I had to sum it up in a simple sentence, it would be, do I think this is worth what I have paid for it? Debatable. Do I think I've got my money's worth out of this? Absolutely. And I know that might sound like a bit of a contradiction, but just to explain what I mean, I obviously have paid for these. I bought them straight from Eaglemoss, and I can't help but, like I said, is with the cons of it and the negatives, and I look at it and think I do feel a bit shortchanged. That being said, there was no obligation, no coercion of any sort in me buying this. I bought it well of my own accord, and I will be perfectly honest, I can't hold that against the company. I have made the decision to buy these. I have looked at this and think, I'm not sure if that's worth my money, but I've still gone out and bought it. And so, whilst I still hold that opinion, it is not something that I've included as a negative as such, because I can't hold a decision I've made of my own accord against the company. You know, it's a difficult position to be in, because it is something that I feel is a valid criticism, but it is a criticism that I could have avoided, you know, and that is on my own head. I fully accept that. But when you look at what you've got, as I said, when you look at the figures themselves, how these have been made, and all the information you get in the magazine, I do feel like, you know, this is something that is worth paying for in that respect. It's not worth paying for in other respects, but it does feel like, yes, I've paid more than I think, but what I have got, I do enjoy very much, you know, and I think if you're a collector of the Eaglemoss figures, get this. I can't fault it on that at all. This is an absolutely brilliant piece to get for your collection. If you're not a collector of the Eaglemoss figures, as I am myself, then I do recommend getting this, but at the same time, I would say get it if you want to get it, not because someone else has told you to get it. I think this is very much a fan-specific thing, you know, and I get the feeling that there's going to be a lot of people like me who have bought this purely for the purposes of just getting the TimeLord Victorious short stories that come with these, that are in the magazine. Because that is the reason I bought it. I wasn't interested in the figures, I bought it solely for the magazine. And for that reason, it makes me wonder if perhaps there is a better way forward, or not a better way forward, I retract that, a additional way forward for Eaglemoss in future, in that the people that want to buy these collections for the figures and the magazine can buy this, what you see on screen here, the actual collection. But for those of us who might just be interested in the magazines, maybe Eaglemoss could run a service via their website, whether it was £5, £7.50, £10, or maybe a sort of subscription service where you can opt in and opt out, where you get sent digital versions of just the magazine. Because then they would be encouraging more people to their business, because, as I said, the problem with these is if you want to buy these for the whole set, great, but if you're just buying it for the magazine, it does feel a bit, you know, I don't really know how to say it in any other way than what I'm about to say, and I do not mean it in the way I'm about to say it, it's just that I can't think of another way to put it. So I want to make it clear that I'm not accusing Eaglemoss of anything here. If you're just interested in the magazine stories, buying it this way feels like a bit of a con, and I don't mean to say that Eaglemoss are conning anybody at all. I really don't want to give that impression at all. What I'm trying to say is, for those of us that just want the narrative, having to buy these figures that we don't necessarily want feels just like it's a bit sort of taking advantage of the situation. You know, it's sort of, you know, forcing us to buy something we don't want. And again, I don't even want to use the word forcing, because no one's forcing us to buy them. We have every reason not to buy them. They're not saying you have to buy this, but the truth is, if you want the stories, you do have to buy this. And it's a, you know, it's a very difficult situation to be in, because as I said, there is no coercion or insistence on Eaglemoss's part to make us buy this. That is a decision of our own accord. But it would have been nice if we could have gone on their website and they could have said, here you go, a £5, we will send you a digital copy of the magazine. And I would have been perfectly happy with that, as I think many other people would have been, because the sad truth is, and I want to make it clear, I'm not going to do this, but I get the feeling that what's going to happen now is somebody is going to buy these sets, they're going to scan this magazine in and then put it up online for people to download. And that's a bit of a shame, because then people obviously aren't going to buy the Eaglemoss figures to get the magazine, because the magazine's the one thing they want. Whereas Eaglemoss, if Eaglemoss just sold the magazine themselves, even as a digital copy, then yes, the same thing would probably happen, but more people would probably be inclined to buy it because that's the one bit that they want. You know, and I'm not trying to say that, you know, I'm not saying that Eaglemoss probably haven't thought about this, and I'm not saying that they are obstructing anyone from doing that. As I said, you know, it is our own choice to buy these sets whether we want to or not. But it is worth considering that there may be an additional way for them to draw in more customers in future by providing them at a small cost with the piece of merchandise that they're interested in, rather than them having to buy the whole set, which includes the bits of merchandise they're not interested in. It's a very difficult thing to explain. I hope I'm explaining it right, and I do want to make it clear I'm not having a go at Eaglemoss at all here. I am just sort of trying to explain it the way I see it. But you know, that's sort of really all I've got to say on this. You know, it's a difficult set for me to review this, because it is a very unknown quantity for me. It's not something that I'm used to, and I wanted to, you know, I know I've been a bit overly critical and, you know, and things like that in this video, but the reason for that, as I said, was I wanted to get all of these criticisms out of the way, because I get the feeling it is something that's going to crop up in the future, you know, reviews, because I am going to get the other sets to review them. You know, and I do just want to sort of get that out of the way now, because then I don't want to be treading the same ground and raking over the same points of criticism in the future sets, because I do buy these, and I do like to try and find as many positives as I can. I'm not going to ignore the negatives, but I'm not here. I haven't made this review just to criticise this. I've made it to try and review it fairly. If reviewing it fairly means I'm showing up more cons than pros, then that is just because that's what I'm seeing. But I'm not reviewing this just to criticise it. I'm reviewing it as a consumer, as a buyer, and I'm just telling you what I see. But that brings to a close another What I Think review. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, favorite, subscribe, share, it really helps me out a lot. Be sure to look at the description below for a link to my Patreon. I'm doing my very first figure animation and you can get involved. There's exclusive content and rewards for those who do so, and funding my Patreon in any way gets your name at the end of my videos. I salute you all, and I will see you with another video very soon.